Hey!
Happy Easter! And just to state the obvious, right out of the starting block,
we have a new host.
We got a new host, or we lost some of our hosts.
About a kilo.
A kilo, yeah.
Yeah.
It looks a bit different. We are not joined by Walt today, but other Walt will be coming as soon as he's done streaming, I think.
Yep.
I see that people are coming from his stream, so I'm guessing that he's coming. I'll just send him a message right away.
Yep. So
and the cat is on time.
Hey, nice.
Nice. And we have other Walt in here. We have other Walt. Welcome, other Walt.
Hey, how are you?
Oh, we got some echo here.
Okay, it should be fixed now.
Let's see.
It is.
Yeah, that is better.
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely. Okay. And I'm sorry I didn't get to catch all of your stream because, I had to prepare for a stream of my own.
Yeah, totally.
And I see you have guns in the background there, Walt.
That's right. I knew that.
Walt, sorry.
I knew that I had to carry on the tradition of the Alder waltz. So the actual waltz. So I went ahead and I had to ask Chuck, my dog, if I could borrow one of his guns, and that's what he came up with is his canine cannon over there.
And so that is actually an antenna launcher, isn't it?
It does not work very well for an antenna launcher. That's why I bought it, and it may shoot a tennis ball like 14 feet, which would be like 3 meters.
And we got a lot of people that are saying that the dude sent me, so that's good. And for those who don't know you, Sean, you've been a guest here a couple of times, but you have a little ham radio channel called Ham Radio Dude.
Yeah, that's right. I like being on this show. I appreciate you guys always having me as a guest. It's a fun time, kind of laid back. And I do well with 4 or 5 people. I'm pretty calm. But yeah, I have a channel, Ham Radio Dude. And all I can tell you is if you haven't seen it before, buckle up because it's a wild adventure. Some days I'm on point and some days I'm all over the place. But we own who we are and we have a good time doing it. And that's what radio should be about, is having a fun time learning about new and exciting things. So yeah,
exactly. And before we go on with our ham radio weeks, I know what you're going through, Bob, because I also had long hair at a point.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right. Seeing as you're sharing that picture, I will just have to share the picture that I shared on Facebook as well, I think.
And just a little piece of information. This is from the 1995 Princeville High School yearbook.
It said 2019 on the image.
Yeah, that's when I managed to scan it. But let's go on to, we're going to discuss POTA and beginner's equipment today, but let's start with our ham radio weeks, and we'll start in the bottom left corner as usual. Tobias, how has your ham radio week been?
As usual, my ham radio week was a ham radio day. I managed to do 1 POTA activation in preparation for our stream. So I finally dragged the QMX out into the woods with the 3 LiPo batteries. And yeah, the cat was also joining me. And I barely made an activation, but I learned a few things. So I can report today in our stream. And I think there's also a small video coming out when I find time to record a summary and all the mistakes I made.
Oh, awesome.
And one of the mistakes I made was, this throw weight, it needs practice, yeah? And this is definitely not the right rope, wire, whatever to use in the woods because it gets entangled in all the branches. So you need something, some smooth nylon which does not get caught up in the fauna.
Yeah, I've never had much luck with those throw weights, though. But I see that Randall asks, how does Kitty affect SWR? And I got a follow-up question to that. How many dBs of gain do you get from the cat?
Yeah, that's the cat. The problem. One of the findings is don't take your cat to a POTA activation because yeah,
cats climb
she-
trees. And you can
Indeed, I should train her to deploy the antenna. That would be a good idea, but
That would be a great idea.
Like Mike just said here, that was my first thought. If you could train her to push the PTT button, you'd have proper cat control.
exactly. Yeah.
But back to your activation, though, Tobias. How did you do with the activation?
It was, as I said, it was a bit unprepared. I just threw all the stuff into the bicycle bag, and then I made a small tour with the cat, and made a pit stop at a cafe, and had a nice piece of cake and a coffee. And on the way back, I thought, hey, now I have all the stuff in the bag already. Now I have to do the activation as well. And let's put it that way. The second activation will be better after this one, yeah, because that's the first time I tried to use the QMX, and the laptop was not really properly set up yet for WSJDX, whatever. What's the acronym? Sorry, I always get confused. The FT8, FT4 program.
WSJTX.
Yes, and I mean, in theory, you should all test this and set this up before you head out into the woods. But of course, I didn't. I just, threw everything into the bag and had to figure it out on the fly. And also, this antenna deployment with the throwaway, that cost about 1 hour of time because it was also the very first. In the end, once you've picked the tree and you know how to throw the weight, it's easy. But yeah, when you do it the very first time, it takes an hour.
Absolutely. But all in all, you made some experiences, though, and I think it's important to not call it a failed activation, though, because you always learn something from those activations. And you did manage to activate, didn't you?
Yes, I just made the 10 QSOs in the end with a little bit of cheating from Hjetil.
That wasn't cheating. I was suddenly at my club station.
So I had Hjetil 2 times or 3 times. I don't know how many calls you used.
I can use the 4th one since it wasn't a contest.
And another trick is to bring another ham, so you can have 2 meter, 70 centimeter, and whichever bands you prefer. If you have just enough radios, I can tell you that 20 meter ground wave works really well within, let's say, 15 meters of horizontal distance. So
Yeah,
Sean,
well, it was nice weather, it was sunny, and it was a fun experience, and I learned something. So what else can you ask?
exactly,
Mine for
and
me
that
was a good day.
exactly, and let's go to Sean. How has your ham radio week been?
Pretty good. Busy for sure. I've definitely stayed busy. We're talking about throwing wires in trees. Tobias, I definitely did the same thing. And what I did is I used a chalk line that you might, for chalking and carpentry. And I tied my Kevlar wire onto it. And then I just swung it around and threw it up in the tree. It's about 53 feet out. And with that, I've been getting to do some radio all week. I had to take it down during the day because there are construction workers out here. But that's been a blast, has been able to kind of get back on the air a little bit and test things out. I got out to HRO, and that's when I realized that I have a problem. A ham radio outlet here in the States, they have a wall, at least in Milwaukee, they have a wall of all the radios, and you can switch between them. And a gentleman came up to me, and he was like, "What do you think of this radio?" And I was like, started talking about all the radios. Well, I have most of the radios, And he was like, "What? You have a lot of radios." And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, when you actually see how many radios are out, on the floor and you have most of them, you're got a problem.
Yeah. Do I have a problem or am I still normal? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Maybe I should sell the radios to fund the new house where I could put up permanent antennas. And I think that that's the goal. So the ham radio week went well. I've been building all these different, Unun and Bellin kind of configurations and kind of having a good time with that and testing out some of my new tools. So I was very polite way I said that, but some of my new tools here have been pretty fun to test out as well. So that's about it for me.
Oh, that's good though.
Yeah.
Seems like a good week. Kjetil, you've been on a lot of FD8 and some contesting this week, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been over at the cabin, which means that I have a radio indoors, which I really love it. I can't have it here. Wouldn't work anyways with all of the noise around me, but over there it's dead quiet and just lovely to sit there running a lot of DX. Yesterday I took part in the CQWX context, 10 watts, and got 61 in the log, including a few fun DX references. I did a POTA, and I tried another, which failed miserably. Like I got 2 QSOs in log. And then later in the day, the bands just opened. So something weird happened.
The bands have been very up and down the last week, though.
Yeah, at least so far north as we are, it's been very much up and down, and like it was just blanketed, nothing.
Yeah.
Couldn't hear anything, couldn't send anything.
Absolutely. So it's been a weird ham radio week.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And then today I drove home from the cabin, back home to Western Norway, which of course has beautiful sunny weather. It was 12 degrees Celsius, not a cloud in the sky, almost no wind. So that was beautiful. How it's never like that normally, but now the last days of the vacation, it's like that. So I hiked up to do a SOTA at No SOTA, Daurmålsnuten, which I have wanted to go on for ages but never bothered to because it looked steep, and it was very much. And you could be very happy you didn't go there on the day you were there, Bob. It was would have been rather slippery, and even on a sunny day like today, I managed to lose the trail.
I'll talk about steep in a little while.
Yes, but like standing there on the top of the decline going down again, it was 400 meters to the road, and it was roughly 400 meters down. So of course zigzagging a lot. So it was a really nice trip. Managed to get some QSOs in between all of the contesters.
That is good though, because I'm going to touch on that subject when it's my turn. But first of all, Bob, you've done a lot of up and down walking this week.
Yes, I have. I'll since you took the time to share a picture of what you looked like with hair, I'll do the same thing. And I did an interesting experiment because I wasn't sure whether I want to shave the beard, the head, both. So I had to do a compare and contrast type of thing. And basically, I did it in bits. But it turns out when you're shaving half your beard and half your head, it's basically just too late. So I went all the way. Now I know this for next time.
And for the people that listen to our podcast and don't watch the video, this is a reason why you need to watch the show on YouTube.
Or maybe the reason why you shouldn't. I don't know. I posted that picture
or
on
it's a
Facebook.
thumbnail.
Huh?
Stream thumbnail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I posted that picture on Facebook, and an old friend of mine, old colleague of mine, just posted as a reply to it: Control C, Control C, Control C, Control C. But yeah,
like Mr. Clean now. Yeah.
Too late, sadly. And let's see. I'll do a quick rundown, maybe, of my ham radio week, because I have been out doing radio every day this week. That's I'm happy with that. I drove down to, as I talked about last week, I drove down to Kjetil's part of the country. I was planning on doing 6 summits. I managed, I was planning on doing 10, but I managed 6 because the heavens opened, and I was really not interested in swimming up the remaining 4. So I just drove home. But on Monday I did 2 Lima Alpha Victor Alpha 073, which was a really nice walk, a nice summit. And after that, I went to Lima Alpha Victor Alpha 067. And when I said I was going to talk about steep, yeah, that's steep. And Kjetil told me we have something in Norway called fjellvettregler, which is it's rules that you need to be aware of when you go into the mountains.
It's a set of guidelines on how to behave in the mountains.
Yeah, and one of the important ones is listen to locals. So I did not listen to a local, and I did pay the price. That was hell. That was the worst ever summit I've been on.
To say, when I drove up to that summit, I just looked at it and went, nope. But that was in winter, so it was icy.
I drove up there, and I saw that sheer cliff face, and I thought, this can't be the right place. It's not possible to have a track going vertical, but it is. Trust me, it is. Yeah, that's no fun. I'm not going to dwell on it. Tuesday, I did another one, Udalsnipa. I think Kjetil just released a video from that summit. Very nice walk, very nice summit. There was a bit of rain and snow when I was there, but that's other than that, very nice trip. Wednesday, I did 2 others. Kjetil suggested to me one on an island. I can't remember the name of it, but it's the summit was Lima Alpha Romeo Lima 025. And coming back off that, I did Lima Alpha Romeo Alpha 049. So all of these so far have been 2 + 3 pointers. So that netted me at least 25 sort of points. Thursday, I got a suggestion from Kjetil because it was raining like nobody's business. So I just did a very, very short one, I think 400 meters walk, just to have done something on that day. And I drove home.
Yeah, and those 2 pointers you mentioned, the other ones, they are really like simple hikes, or pretty simple hikes compared to like the Veden.
Yes, indeed. I would rather walk all 4 of the others than do that Veden thing again. So yeah, that's not happening. I got home. I did Parks on the Air on what's called Færder National Park. It's now November Oscar 2372. That's a very nice activation. I tried to film it, and basically every piece of equipment I had for recording pictures or audio was out of power. I forgot to charge them all. That was fun. And yesterday, today Sunday, yesterday I did Presterødkilen Nature Preserve, which is really close to me. I was driving the park. And I did a contest, apparently. And I made, this was in the evening on 20 meters, and I wasn't expecting really much, but I started the radio and on 14.100, and I just slowly worked my way up to 14.350, stopping by everyone I could hear to try and answer them. And I had 40 QSOs in 1 hour, including 2 to Japan, Oman, Thailand, lots of other interesting stuff. This is on 20 meters with a hamstick on top of the car. So thinking maybe I should try this again after the stream today. That was a fun afternoon. I've been talking for an awfully long time now, so I'll wrap it up. Just say, dude, I have done PCB design. I'm not very good at it, but if you want to talk to me about it, then we can do that. That's my week.
Awesome. Then it's my week. I've been doing a lot of portable this week, but I got 2 activations worth mentioning, actually. I've had most of the week off. I only worked 1 day this week, so I've had some time for radio. Trying out a couple of things. Trying to get WindLink to work on 2 meters this week as well. Did not make it work like I thought I would, so I got to look into that. But besides that, I've been doing 2 activations, and I'm going to share something here. The first one, I think that was on the 28th. That's Thursday, isn't it? Yeah, Thursday. I went out at my usual park, and hamsticks on top of the car. Got a decent number of QSOs. I got 32 QSOs, and about half of them were North America. There was a lot of Indiana. That's why there's only 1 line going into Indiana there, but got a lot of Indiana and some other US. But besides that, as you can see, I got a lot of exciting DX, but it didn't feel that way. I didn't have a single moment of pileup. and it just felt like a lot of work, and that was really strange feeling, getting all that DX and everything just felt like work. So that was a bit strange. And then I went out today because I figured I'd make a video on how to make a POTA activation work during a contest. Made a video on that. I'm gonna release that for my members later on tonight, and for the rest of you guys on Friday, I think. So you can see how to make POTA work during the contest. I got a couple of pieces of advice for you there. I think that's pretty much my ham radio week. Yeah, and I did some CQ WPX contesting as well. Not as bad as Bob, but I just went through 10 meters and got 30 QSOs in about an hour. And that was a lot of fun. Got all of those strange DX places you never get otherwise. So I guess that's my ham radio week. And since most of us have mentioned POTA here, that brings us on to the subject. But first of all, do we have a YouTube channel of the week, or did we forget this week as well?
Damn it.
Somebody had an idea. We just forgot it.
Yeah. So we'll get back to that at some point.
I think it's in the Discord channel. Somebody suggested one. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, that was it. That was what
Yeah.
we did for this week. So
Let's. But who wants to talk about starting equipment for POTA, and then I'll find the YouTube channel that someone mentioned for us.
Absolutely. Let's do this. Okay, so Parks on the Air. You got these guys from Europe, you got this guy from the US, but the point is no matter what you do when you're going to do Parks on the Air, you need to have some kind of equipment. If you don't have all the required equipment, you might not be able to activate the park or log. So we'd like to think that there's a certain set of things that we're going to bring with us to activate, whether it's our first or our last activation, and hopefully not forget. So with that, we're going to start off with a list of things at home that we'd like to check for. And that's why I like to have a checklist, so that before I leave my house, I can confirm that I have everything in the vehicle. To include, and I'll just go over a couple of basic ones, I don't want to take up the show, but to include things like a pen and a paper for logging if you're not going to use your phone. And sometimes it's nice to have pen and paper even if you do have your phone, because your phone could die. Speaking of dying, that would then kind of result into us of actually having radio equipment. What are we going to bring for radio equipment? And one of the things we're going to need is a battery, which we might be able to use to charge our phone, or more importantly, power our radio. And this is very basic stuff, but those are just a couple of things I start to think of when I'm going out there. When we start to think about, well, I have a battery and I need a radio and coax and an antenna, and those will be very minimum things, but I'm not going to overdo it. I always like to have a checklist is kind of my point, because that starts to lead to other things. And then I know also I won't forget. In fact, if we want to talk about checklists, I carry checklists everywhere. So, a checklist is always an important thing to bring with you. Might not be critical to your activation unless you forget something on that checklist. So.
Absolutely. And having a little bit of an idea, but just to keep it basic for beginners, what you will need is some kind of radio, whether that be a 2-meter radio, an HF radio, and I would strongly recommend an HF radio. You need some coax, you need an antenna, and you need something to log on, and something to power it all. That's the basics.
That's right.
And then there's some opinions on everything. I've been a QRP guy, but I don't really want to recommend QRP for the new guys. It's going to make the activation a lot rougher.
And QRP, in case there are some new guys out there who aren't aware, it's a low power operation, typically under 20 watts. And the reason that Morton's saying that it might be difficult to activate, or it may be difficult to activate rather with QRP, you might not make enough contacts. You might not be heard around the world as far as you might be with a little more power. And that could become frustrating for somebody who's new, who's like, okay, I just want to make contacts, and all of a sudden nobody hears you, right?
Because with QRP or low power, it kind of requires you to optimize the rest of your station setup a lot more. That being said, this is one of the cheapest radios you can actually start with Parks on the Air with. This is about $100. But if you want to make it fun, find a park that's relatively easy to get to and use at least 20 watts. That's my suggestion. And it suddenly got awkward silence here.
Yeah, I've queued up another image because Sean just said he doesn't like to overdo things, and I on the other hand, I like to overdo things. So if you could, that was the battery I brought for the contest thing, sitting in the footwell of the passenger.
That'll last you about 2 weeks while you're QRP.
And absolutely.
But for that, you don't need a solar panel for that. If you there's no chance that you should run out of power.
I charged that at home, and that was in my car the whole week when I lived in my car, by the way, when I drove down to the western part of Norway. So that was there all along. There's a 300-watt inverter there, and basically everything you need. So overdoing it can be good at occasions.
Absolutely. And the Damned ask, what wattage would you recommend for newbies? 45 Auto says 100 watts. I'm not going to go that far. There is a really good 20-watt radio on the market that is relatively inexpensive and is built like a tank. And since Walt's not here, I'm just going to say that's the Saigu G90.
That's right.
Yeah. And 20 watts is going to help you a lot. 50, 100 will do a good thing as well. But when you do 100 watts, you are eating batteries a lot quicker.
And there is a happy medium between that. You know, you're running 100 watts, but you're draining your battery. You might not be able to activate as long, but maybe you reduce to 50 watts, and you don't even lose an S unit. What do you lose, like 3 dB? It's a minimal amount. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's like your car. You don't drive it full throttle all the way to the activation.
What?
It can go 150 miles per hour, but it probably doesn't all the way.
Maybe that's why I need a new engine on my Ford Bronco already, 15,000 miles.
And Lee says here, when you look at antennas, note how to mount it. Some parks don't allow anything in trees and no stakes on the ground, and that is also a good piece of advice. There is no perfect POTA setup.
No.
I think that advice about parks. I've never been in a park in Norway where I would be afraid to put a stick in the ground or tie something in a tree. I think so that is culturally and nationally dependent. I think.
Yeah.
Definitely. But still, there are parks around here where I kind of don't want to stand with a throw line and throw anything up in trees. One of the parks near me is a historical site and a really well preserved park that was made in the 1700s, and I am not gonna throw a line up in a tree in that location, even though I might be allowed to do it. I'm not gonna do it though.
Fair enough. I always bring a telescopic mast for activations, so that I don't require trees.
But some way to mount your antenna. Like in theory, you can operate with antenna underground, do it NVIS style, or which means near vertical something.
Incidental skywave.
Yeah, something like that. Which means that you set up your antenna like a tripwire, maybe a meter above the ground or something like that. But that's not suitable for all locations, and it's not going to give you any DX. So most likely, like getting some way to get your antenna up, if it's rope, if it's a mast, a fishing pole, a kite, but that's not something for a first-time activator, or something you put on the roof of your car, like the mag mount stuff that you guys use.
I
If
think
it's
it
a
also
drive-to
depends what kind of activation you want. Yeah, are you just there with the backpack and have to travel light, or are you with the car and the Jeep is parked next to a bench and then you can go crazy and take as much as you want?
Oh, absolutely.
That's a
absolutely.
great point. That's a really good point.
Because at least some parks around here are deep into the woods and you need to hike. And that would be where QRP kind of helps you out because it's easier to carry. You don't need to carry as much weight.
Yeah,
But you
and
don't
for
want
those,
to make it too hard for you as well, yeah? Otherwise, I don't know.
And that is-
somewhere there's a golden middle ground, yeah? So
Yeah, and
I
that
think,
is-
a 20-watt radio, a moderate antenna, that's probably a good start when you get into POTA.
Absolutely. And perhaps we should just take a round here and talk about what our preferred POTA setups are, though, because all of us have done a little bit of POTA. So, Tobias, what do you usually bring when doing Parks and Deer?
Well, I'm probably the one with the least POTA experience here because there's not a lot of parks around my place, yeah? So I have the big wood, but of course you cannot drive with the car into the wood. So basically I have to see either I take one of the parking spots on the perimeter, then I can do a mag mount and do a hamstick on the roof of the car. And that's quite a lot of fun when you can do 100 watt and it's not contest weekend. Then you can basically create easily a pile up with a setup like that. And yeah, when you want to go into the woods, well, yesterday I tried it with the throw weight and getting wire into a tree, but I think it's much easier when you take a light mast, like a spider pole or something like that. You can find some tree stump where you can tie it around, and then it's just easy. You're much quicker in deploying the antenna. That's what I'm saying. Or maybe I just need more practice. That would also be the case.
Absolutely. But I think you're doing a good job on keeping it as simple as possible, though, from what I hear from you, Tobias.
Yeah, what do we want to say?
Yeah.
I'm still experimenting and try to find out what works for me and what doesn't. And yeah, I mean, you guys are all, seasoned POTA activators and have, go bags and stuff. And I think for every activation I have to think, okay, what do I try today? Yeah, do I do the 100 watt mag mount idea, or do I use the QMX and the wire antenna, or do I take a spider pole? So I'm still trying to find my preferred setup.
Absolutely. And I see there's some discussion around the FT891 in the chat here. And that's probably the go-to POTA radio for almost anyone.
it is one of them, yes.
Although
right.
I don't own one. Sean, what's your preferred POTA setup? if you should pick one.
The Yaesu FT891, and I'm not just saying that because it was brought up, but that is literally, if I had to get rid of every radio right now, including my Flex radio, it would be the 891 that I would keep. And the reason would be just because it is so portable, yet it packs enough power, being 100 watts. I rarely go up to 100 watts, by the way, but it's such a great radio. And if we're talking about my whole gear setup, typically what I'll do is I'll go out to the field, I'll have 50 feet of coax, RG8X, and I'll go into the Yaesu FT891 through an NFED. Of course, there's an NFED in there as well, 49-1, which should get me 4 bands. It's very simple. It's easy. And the nice thing about the NFED is I take a mast with me. I bring a mast with me that's lightweight enough to carry around. So that's it. I put the mast up, I put the wire on top of the mast and I slope her down. Where that NFED terminates, we go coax. There's a 50-foot run, which will go to my radio. And I got my LifePo 4 battery and a beach chair, right? But that's my primary go-to if I'm traveling and so forth, unless I'm traveling somewhere where I have to be QRP, which is a whole nother story.
Yeah.
What I will tell you, though, is it's a very simple setup. It's very basic. I could be set up in 10 minutes and operating. So that's what I like. I like, if I'm going to enjoy myself and do Parks on the Air, maybe not every time I go out there I'll have a successful activation. I pretty much do have one. But I'm having a good time, and I got the equipment up and ready to go quickly. That's my key.
Absolutely. And I see there's some discussion about batteries here. And there's a discussion about 18 versus 9 amp hours, and the amount of amp hours isn't the important factor. It's how many amps the battery actually can deliver if you're going to run a 100-watt radio. If the battery can't deliver 20 amps, you're going to have a hard time running 100 watts on it.
Yeah, the radio.
Actually, there's an extremely small amount of time that you actually draw the full 20 amps when you run a 100-watt sideband.
Yep.
I have batteries that are stated with BMSs that says a maximum 10 amps. I've used them on the 8991 with absolutely no problem, because the peaks where you actually draw more than 10 amps, they're extremely small. So
absolutely. But I got a battery here, which is a 5 amp hour battery, and I am not able to run 100 watts on this battery. I can run 50 without problem. I can run 75, but once I go over 75 watts, it just doesn't deliver enough power to the radio. So you have to be aware of that, but you don't need a battery that can deliver necessarily 20 or for that 30 amps.
I was muted. I was saying sometimes these things have current protection, so they can really just do 10 amps, and if you try to draw above 10, game over. Yeah.
Yep, exactly, and that's the way it
is installed.
Exactly. So, but you can reduce your power in that case. You don't really need 100 watts, nonetheless.
But one interesting thing that I've noticed is that your radio does not need the same amperage on every band. Yeah. So I tried this with the Canvo TS50. Yeah, and apparently it's more efficient on 40 meters than it is on 20 or 10. Yeah. So I could easily do the power on 40, and when I switched to 10 meter, then the current protection of my power station kicked in. Yeah, so and I couldn't do the 100 watts anymore or 50 watts. So interesting.
Exactly, and another factor you have to consider with batteries is how much does it weigh. If you're operating from your car, it doesn't really matter. But
yeah.
If you're putting the battery in a backpack and hiking 5-6 kilometers into the woods, every gram counts.
Yeah. So from your experience, you're all seasoned POTA activators. When you want to do 100 watts with a 891, what battery would you get? Really? How many amp hours? Yeah, you get a nice lithium iron phosphate battery, maybe. Yeah, but
yeah, always.
What do you really need?
I think for my use, I found that for the 891, I have a 12 amp hour lithium iron phosphate battery, and I think that's the sweet spot. That's able to deliver the amperage for going 100 watts sideband, and it weighs around about a kilo, maybe a little bit less. It's a very nice compromise for something you have to put in your backpack and carry.
I got 6 amp hours for the IC705, but I was thinking, yeah, maybe 12 or 15 or something in that ballpark would be good for a 100.
Yeah, I've been measuring the power consumption of my activations, and I usually, with an hour-long pileup and 100 watts, I usually run about 5.5 amp hours.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
All depends on how long you're going to activate. But when I've been running a pileup for an hour, I don't really feel like running the pileup for another hour anyway.
I'll say this: I've never run out of battery for operating. I've run out of battery for everything else, including phones, but not for operating. So it's a bit overstated, the problem of running out of juice, I think.
Absolutely.
I have done that, but I've done that when I was operating, I think it was 3 or 4 summits in a few days in a row without the possibility to charge. That was a SOTA, of course, but still.
Yep.
And for Flora Fauna, which then was 44 QSOs, when I was doing that, that is a lot more. Like that can start draining your battery.
Absolutely. And
one more point about batteries while we're at them. I would say that when you fly, you are allowed to bring 100 watt hours. I think that's the limit of what you're allowed to bring on the plane. So if you get a battery that's less than 100 watt hours, and preferably one that says so on the actual battery, then you can easily bring your battery on flights. If you get a bigger battery, they might take it from you at security. So
Yeah.
something to think about.
That's accurate.
absolutely.
And they may also do it if it doesn't specifically say what hours.
Yep.
If it says milliamp hours, they can basically say it doesn't say what hours we take this battery.
Yeah, never trust the physics knowledge of security of people at airports.
No. Kjetil, what do you run for Poda?
I run portable QRP mostly. I do mostly use my X6100, Saigu X6100, which is an okay radio. It's not perfect in any way, but it is a good radio. Sometimes I've used my G90, but I rarely bring that anymore. I also have a 100-watt rig, Kenwood TS480Z, which is completely useless for portable operations, but it managed to get the radio waves out there, but it's not built for it, to say it that way. And I have the same battery as you have, Martin. No issues running that with 100 watts output, but that may be radio dependent as well, like how much current draw you have there.
Yeah.
For the smaller radios, the G90 and 6100, I use this one, which is a power bank car boost starter thing, 12 volts output, and this one runs me for 2 hours. So it's a good little thing. So it's really interesting to hear about like power consumption. When I started this, I started digging a lot into it, and I found at that time the Yaesu FT817 was the best you could get. And some states still is the best. And some people have been like looking down into the nano amp level consumption. If you switch out that transistor or that LED, how much power can you save? So if you want to dig into it, then F817ND is a good choice.
Absolutely. But you're kind of the exception here, though, because you prefer to do QRP.
That is because I have an absolute requirement for a radio, and that is a built-in tuner. A radio for me that does not have a built-in tuner is absolutely off the board. It's completely I will never buy that, basically. I know it's possible to buy an external tuner, which is an extra box. An extra box is something that you don't want, or I don't want at least. So for me, that is an absolute killjoy.
And that's
exactly
maybe. Sorry.
Yeah.
Go
ahead.
Another question. I'm going on a tangent now. So you all prefer doing SSB while you're out in the parks, or are you also doing digital modes or
also digital
CW
modes?
even? Yeah, maybe Bob will do CW in a few months.
I'm doing data
Hopefully.
mode to be specific, and not digi modes, which is also CW. But that is something I bring my laptop out, and I have a very similar one that you have, a Lenovo 14-inch one, which is rugged. It will take some nudges and bumps outdoors. I've also used Microsoft Surface tablets, which did not survive being outdoors. At least the keyboard didn't survive. But it is fun to run digital sometimes.
Yeah, I usually.
Coming to running digital, one thing you definitely have to do when you do FT8 or FT4 is you have to synchronize your clock before you go off grid. Yeah.
I'm so happy you brought that up, Tobias. There's something called the other FT8 application. It's called not W8.
ATDX.
In that one, you can go to you tune to the FT8 frequency, and there's a synchronize time functionality that will synchronize not to the correct time, but to the time that the majority of the signals.
Other stations, yeah,
yes,
that's a good tip. Yeah.
That's an excellent way of doing it. You don't have to keep things in sync. You don't need a GPS. You don't need anything. Just you start off doing that. Takes 30 seconds at the start of your activation, and you're off to the races.
On the other hand, I must say,
theoretically that works, but the guys that went to Beauvais, they tried that and it did not work for them.
Yeah, so you need
that's not the common case, though, is it?
It's not.
Cheap GPS receivers are dead cheap these days. Yeah, I mean, I bought 2 for my Meshtastic build, and I'm thinking about buying a third one that just goes into a 3D printed USB stick case in order to do the time synchronization on the laptop.
Yeah, and
Because,
they're
usually when I'm operating at home, you have these services like, what is this called? Let me look. It's called it's NTP sync service, Mindbag or something
Yep.
like that. That makes sure that your time in your PC is 100% on track, and then you forget about it. And I had that installed on my laptop, yeah, of course. But yeah, if you're in the middle of the woods, no internet connection, nothing to sync against, right? So
Yep.
first major mistake made in that activation.
I was going to bring up share internet from your phone, but then again, we're in a country with really good cell phone coverage, and that might not be applicable for everyone.
We're
Not
not
everywhere.
I was able to call for help with Yetil, so maybe trying to get the time from the internet would have worked via the mobile phone, but you can't think of everything.
And Morten, quite strictly, we're in the part of the country with excellent cell phone coverage. It's not this good everywhere. Kjetil can attest.
Over here, like a few of the parks I frequently operate are cell phone coverage is marginal, so I have to go away to spot. I have to go higher up to spot myself. And that brings out one point there. For POTA, most people spot themselves using the POTA app. It's not a requirement, but it does make your day a lot easier.
And a lot more fun.
Yeah, so either know how to spot using your cell phone and be able to do that, or have some other way. You can spot via email, but that requires internet most of the time. Of course, you can do it.
There is a really good app called Sodamate. It's spelled without the E. If you want to look into that, I got a video on it. It's too deep of a subject to get into at the moment. Now I see that Jürgen and Kjetil points out both the same thing here. So that is a really good tool. But back to the station setups, Bob. What's your go-to setup?
I have many. I just need to ask.
Yeah, I know you have many, but what if you had one setup, what would you do?
Yeah, right. That's going to happen. Kjetil, I just need to ask a question because you have the 6100 and you have the G90.
Yep.
I have both radios as well, and I very often bring the G90. You very often bring the 6100. Why do you prefer the 6100 to the G90?
Less dangly cables.
For Digimodes?
For Digimodes, and also I really do not like that Tamiya mini connector for the G90, the power connector. That is one of the few things that has actually failed for me in the field quite a few times, those mini connectors. Of course, it's really easy to just fix and just push it in there, but it's something I don't like to have a dodgy connector on my radio. Of course, you can replace it with a power pole or something else, but that is was the major flaw for me on that one. But sometimes I still use it if I know I I know that I need more power or something like that, because it is a bad radio.
I think so too, and I feel more comfortable putting that thing in my backpack than the 6100. The 6100 feels more fragile with the big screen and the sticking out knobs, and yeah. So, but I'll do a very quick. I would think I would bring the G90 or the 891. I can't choose between them. These are fantastic radios for going out, and if I'm doing several activations, several mountains, and I don't want to bring a big battery, I will just normally take the G90 because I can bring a smaller battery. I
must say I'm itching for a FT710, just to put next to the Kenwood TS50 and see how much better or worse it is in certain areas.
Ooh.
Yeah. But you want to put that in a backpack?
The 710 is not such a big radio, right?
It's a small
big
radio, but it's still a big radio compared to other.
It's a heavy radio, and it's fairly expensive radio to put in a backpack, I think. So,
yeah.
But all right. But let me continue because Simple's the name of the game. A vertical antenna, simple vertical antenna, monoband vertical antenna. I have one now. I'm going to talk about this at some point. The design that I made with the LC match, but any simple vertical antenna, go with 20 meters. If you want to have a monoband antenna, go with 20 meters. It almost never fails. You will almost always manage an activation on 20 meters. And you can bring more. Go ahead.
20 is the go-to band.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's see, I made some more notes here. I agree with you, Sean, that the 891 is probably the radio I would want to keep. But I also have an 857, and I'm not sure which one of them, but I'm leaning towards the 857 the fact that it also has 2 meters and 70 cents.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as you said, Sean, a good chair. I learned that from Morten. First activation we did together, I sat on the ground. He sat in his fantastic chair. So yeah, if you're not walking too far, bring a good chair for sitting in. That really makes the whole thing much more enjoyable.
Yeah.
I need an honorable mention as well, and that is the FX4CR. The tiny radio. Walt's shown it off, and I think I have shown it off on a couple of YouTube shorts. That is an excellent radio. If you have fairly large pockets, you can put that in your pocket. You don't even need a backpack.
Absolutely.
That's my parts on the air equipment.
Okay, I'm gonna talk about my setup. It's not the usual setup, but that's because this radio came at a decent price. So that's the ICOM 706 Mark II-G. It's an all-band, all-mode radio. It does not have a tuner, as you can see, so I have a tuner on top of it. Don't necessarily bring that. That's my go-to radio. It's 100 watts in a relatively compact package. I gotta remember to do it like this instead. So not everyone see my Facebook. That's my go-to radio right now. I also have the small Chinese USDX radio for just if I want to reduce weight and keep it QRP. Antenna-wise, I like 20 meters. I like verticals for Poda. The easiest way you can do is build a simple wire vertical. You get one of those banana plug adapters, BNC to banana plugs. You put 5 meters of wire on the center pin, and you make yourself a radial net on the shield pin. And then you have a simple quarter wave vertical. Tape that to a fishing pole, jam it in somewhere, and you got the easiest antenna to get out with. That's my, if I was only going to use one setup, that would be it. Radio-wise, I tend to switch my portable radios around every 6 months or so. So since I got licensed, I've used the G90, the 817, the 6100, and now the 706. The reason I went for a 100-watt radio is because I tended to use the QRP radios with amplifiers, and as Cheta says, that's another box.
Yep.
And if you're always going to use an amplifier with a radio, you can just as well buy a 100-watt radio. It's cheaper in the long run, nonetheless.
Yeah, and there's
maybe
some
just a quick interjection. I've checked. FT710 size is about 24 times 8 times 25 centimeter. So it's not so big, but of course it's 4.5 kilograms that you have to lug up the mountain if you want to lug
it's
it
a
up
bulky
the mountain.
radio. If you're gonna.
Tobias, I'm just going to bring this up, though. Big in the shack and big portable are two very different things.
yeah.
It's a big radio.
I have the 7300 in the shack. It's not a big radio, but I can tell you, when you bring that out portable in the backpack, it's more than big enough.
Yeah,
and I'll take the 9.
That goes full circle again. How do you do your activations? Do you do them from the car, or do you hike for 3 hours up a summit or somewhere?
And the correct answer on what's your beginner equipment, what should be your beginner equipment, as always in ham radio, it depends.
Yeah, I would say to count, you're absolutely correct, but also just don't be afraid to get out there because you don't have this radio or that radio. Like a bad, they say this about fishing too, but a bad day of Poda is better than a good day at work. And the point is get out there and with whatever you have, just kind of go out there and you'll get the hang of it. Maybe the first time you won't be successful. Maybe you realize that the 991 is also kind of bulky. is maybe not the most ideal thing for your scenario, but maybe the IC705 is, because and the question was asked about UHF, VHF outside of Japan. Yeah, here in the States, you could definitely activate VHF, UHF on parks in the air, more particular in the West where there's a lot of mountains because you're at that high point. So, you'll get out there with the most basic equipment. A vertical antenna is actually a really good idea, to be honest, with radials. But you'll get out there, and the first time you're out there, you'll realize, hey, next time maybe I should try this. And this is what they talk about with amateur radio, experimentation. It's an experimentation hobby, because you're going to change one thing, and then you're going to realize that you got this bug, and you're going to buy 12 more things, and all of a sudden...
And
Things are spiraling rapidly out of control, right?
Exactly. But the point is, and I think what you're trying to say, Sean, is take whatever equipment you have, bring it out portable and try. And then after a while, you'll actually realize what you need and what you want, and what's nice to have and what's need to have on a POTA.
Yeah, and what you like. That's the most important thing. What you need, what you like. And one of the things, if I don't want to take up the show or anything, but Bob mentioned something really good a moment ago that I forgot. But to counter with what he was saying, is it's important to also have like proper water and food. Many times you'll see me in my video chugging a gallon of water. I'm not just doing that for the views. I'm drinking water because I don't want to dehydrate and then possibly have an issue out there. So even though it's not required to activate, it might really help you out to make sure that you have a trail mix bar and some water.
Staying alive is kind of it's usually a general requirement for that. But if you're going hiking, like if you're not going in your car, then you need clothes, you need proper clothes. You'll be sitting outdoors, at least if it's winter or if it's rainy or windy, you will get cold, you will get wet. You need something to protect yourself, to protect your radio, something comfortable to sit in. If it's a chair or if it's something else, you may need a tent, a tarp, whatever. Food for a while if you're hiking. A map could be nice if you're going somewhere hard. But for your first activation, go somewhere simple. That's like the most important thing. Go a flat place where you can park your car and go a few meters.
And I just want to touch, because OH6CAD said he plans to use a Clansman PRC 320 for POTA and Worldwide Flora Fauna, and that takes a lot of dedication using a radio like this. This is not a beginner's radio for portable activities. Just so that's been said.
How much does that thing weigh? And was that just? Can we get the picture back? Because I think I saw a gear shift lever on it, and I don't understand what that's for. But how much does that thing weigh?
It's a military portable radio, though. But then again, the ICOM 735 was the Norwegian HF radio for Aegis for the military forces. So that is not a particularly portable radio as well.
11 kilos without batteries, and the batteries are 24-volt nickel cadmium.
Oh, jeez. That's crazy.
It delivers 30 watts HF.
That puts the lead acid battery that you brought up to Linnekreppen into perspective, Morten.
It does. Let's see here. Rasmus asked how many radials are enough for one's first vertical antenna. And the correct answer here is as well, it depends. But I got a radial net that I tend to use with all my vertical radios, and that consists of 8 5-meter long radials. It's hooked up to a power pole connector, so all my balance and such have power pole connectors on the other end. So same radial net for all my vertical antennas.
I gave a slightly different answer to that.
Half-wave doesn't need one, or?
That is a rat's nest.
We have 2 minutes left, Tobias.
We have 2 minutes left, and we should do the challenge
for the next week, right?
We should do the challenge of the week, and that was Rasmus that pointed that out. And Jürgen says that more radials are better, and that is correct. You get to a point where you get a diminishing return on the number of radials, though. Let's see here. Let's find the channel here. And it's Mike Zero NTV. And he does homebrewing. And I haven't actually I haven't actually watched the channel though, but it seems like he does a lot of homebrewing stuff, and a lot of you people seem to enjoy his videos though.
Yeah, it was Rasmus Sierra Alpha 5 Romeo Juliet Sierra that suggested him, because he does a lot of fun homebrewing stuff, and it is really cool to see people build stuff from the bottom up.
It is, and it's so far out of my league on building filters and radios and everything. So, Tim says that half waves don't need radials.
Well, the half waves, every antenna needs some sort of counterpoise of some sort. The fact that a half wave is a really high impedance antenna means that you need very, very little, but there needs to be something. That can be a piece of shielding on a coax. It can be anything. But if you just choke off your coax and then go straight into a half wave, it's not going to be a particularly good antenna, I think. So, but yeah,
I do not use radials for an end-fed half wave.
But you probably don't choke it right at the where the antenna is fed, do you?
I choke it about this long jumper cable length from the feed point.
So typically, well, that's probably another conversation for another day about where to choke the thing.
And you just had a stream about that before we went on.
I was thinking about going to stream again after this, but you do have a point also though that like, okay, there are a lot of different configurations, and somebody might think that they're just going to run their end fed straight into their radio with the BNC connector. You could, in theory, do that. And I just want to caution you that if you're going to go straight into your radio with your end fed half wave with BNC, that you 100% have radio wire, a quarter wavelength to the lowest band that you're going to use for your end fed half wave, if you're going to do that, because that would be like the simplest, basic, most beginner setup ever, would be your end fed straight into your radio. But you're introducing a lot of, I don't know if this is the correct word, current into the radio that shouldn't be there, current, is that right? Anyway, so, I just wanted to point that one out.
And I see that Tim says, Tim has a lot of comments here, and Tim knows a lot more about this than I do, so I'm not going to argue with Tim. And then quarter waves are much more ground dependent, and that is absolutely correct. So, but I'm not going to argue with Tim because Tim knows what he's talking about. I only have opinions.
That's why we got into ham radio, isn't it? To have exercise our opinions. Yeah.
I see we're pretty much at an hour now, and thank you, Sean, for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Sorry, I was running around with my head cut off in here, but my apologies. But I had a good time, and as you could hear Chuck in the background, he's having a nightmare.
Oh.
Does he wiggle his feet while he's sleeping?
Yeah.
Yep.
I think this might have been our most on-topic stream yet.
Yeah, this was really on topic.
But it's a topic. It's a topic that allows us to go a little bit off topic because there are so many things to discuss.
That's accurate.
Like ham radio.
We avoided most controversies.
So, but I hope, at least if you're new to Parks and Ear, I hope you got some knowledge here watching this. And the correct answer, as anything in ham radio, is it depends.
That's accurate.
And on that note, as they say on Top Gear, at least when Jeremy Clarkson was in Top Gear, I don't think there is a real Top Gear after that. We'll end the stream, and we'll see you next week. 7-3.
Guys, thanks for
7-3.